Hi, first grade.
Hello, first grade,
This is Mrs. Kunda,
and Mr. DeStefano.
and we are here with our last Listen and Learn for this unit, and this is Habitat Destruction and Endangered Species. As always, we miss you so much, first grade.
Yes, we do. And just a reminder that in this unit, we are reading nonfiction text. Remember, nonfiction texts are texts or stories that teach, inform, and explain real things. They often, but not always, have real pictures.
Yep, we're going to see a lot of real pictures today. All right, but before we hop into our story, as always, we need to go over some vocabulary. So we're going to start up here in the left-hand corner with the word destroy. So to destroy means to completely ruin something. So if you take a look at the sentence at the bottom, it would destroy the forest if someone cut down all the trees.
And our next word is endanger, which means to put in danger or harm's way, to create a dangerous situation. If you look at the word endanger, the en at the beginning, it says n, it almost looks like the word in. So it's kind of like, I think of it as in danger. So if you endanger something, you put something or you put something in danger. So a forest fire would endanger all of the animals that make the forest their home. So the forest fire would put the animals of the forest in danger. It would endanger them.
Wow, that's a great trick to remember that, Mr. DeStefano. All right, our next word is endangered species. So this is a species present in such a small number that in the future it may no longer exist. So just like Mr. Stefano said with that word endanger, how the N is kind of like in, these are animals that are in danger of no longer existing anymore. And if you take a look at the sentence, the bald eagle used to be an endangered species because there were very few alive and people were destroying their habitat. And we'll learn more about the bald eagle today.
And our last word is extinction. It says the end of a species because of the death of all its members. Very sad. So dinosaurs once lived on Earth and they faced extinction because of changes to their habitat. So dinosaurs are now extinct. That means there's none of them alive on the Earth anymore. So you cannot go anywhere on the Earth today and find a living dinosaur because they are extinct.
Nope, can't go to the zoo and see a dinosaur, unfortunately, although that would be pretty cool. All right, and as always, we want to hear from you. So we've got a lovely journal response. And today we really want you to think and turn those listening ears on, because today we want you to write 4 sentences. And in these 4 sentences, we want you to explain what you learned about bald eagles. So in 4 separate sentences, tell us things that you learned about bald eagles. And we gave you 2 sentence starters at the bottom that you're welcome to use. The first one says, I learned. And the second one says, bald eagles are. So those are just 2 examples for you that you are welcome to use.
Okay. Rattenborough here, delivering the final installment of our exciting habitats adventure. We have traveled all around the world, looking at some of the different habitats where plants and animals live. A lot of those habitats, such as the Arctic and the Sonoran Desert, have climates to which you and I would have a tough time adapting. As we've seen, however, there are different living things in each habitat we've visited. Because some living things are so well adapted to the specific conditions of their specific habitats, any large change in their surroundings could make it hard for them to survive. So let's think about that. So animals are adapted to living in certain conditions in their habitat, and if something changes in their habitat, it might make them hard to survive. Just think what would happen if it got even a little colder in the desert. Some of those animals who are so good at keeping cool wouldn't know how to stay warm. Or what if it stopped raining in the rainforest? What would happen to all of those plants that need lots of water? Or what if something happened to disrupt the food chain of a certain animal? If that animal relied on a certain type of plant or animal to eat, and that food source was taken out of the habitat, that animal would no longer have the food it needs to survive. Sometimes habitats change because the temperature or the weather changes, but unfortunately, people often affect habitats as well. Whether they realize it or not, people can make it very difficult for plants and animals to survive.
From cutting down trees or starting forest fires to dumping dangerous waste chemicals into our rivers, people's actions can endanger lots of species of plants and animals. Sometimes people's actions destroy entire habitats. For example, someone walking in a forest might light a match and drop it, and then the whole forest might burn. Even if they were not harmed by the forest itself, many animals that used to live in the trees would no longer have a place to live. When they lose their homes, animals find it much harder to continue to live in a particular habitat. If they can't find new places to live, the animals will not survive. After a while, there will be fewer and fewer of these kinds of animals alive in the world. When that happens, we say they have become an endangered species. We say these species are endangered for a very good reason. They are in danger of extinction. An animal or a plant that is extinct has died out and does not exist anywhere in the world anymore.
So if an animal becomes endangered, we have to try, as human beings, we have to try to find out ways to help it so that it doesn't become extinct.
It's a good reminder to keep to really take care of our environment.
I'm on a mission to tell you about one animal that can teach us a lot about endangered species and how to save them. I have come here to Washington State in the northwestern part of the United States to show you an amazing bird called a bald eagle. Look up at that tree there and you will see one of these eagles perched on the very top branch. You may recognize the bald eagle because it is one of the nation. You may recognize the bald eagle because it is one of the national symbols of our country. Drawings of the eagle appear as a symbol on American money and in many other places. Believe it or not, the bald eagle was almost extinct in the United States several years ago. If that had happened, there would be no bald eagles still living. So we're grateful to be able to spot this bald eagle today.
Wow, could you imagine that? No more bald eagle?
That would have been really sad.
Bald eagles are scavengers, but they also eat rats and other small animals, so I'd better stay out of the way. I think that the bald eagle looks very grand, don't you? It is covered with dark brown feathers and its head and tail are both white. Bald eagles are some of the largest birds in this country. They can grow up to 3 feet tall, which is almost as tall as a first grader. Wow, this one has just taken off into the air, and you can see it has huge wings. In fact, their wings can spread to about 8 feet in length. While this eagle is flying around, let me tell you some more about these special birds.
There used to be thousands of bald eagles in the United States, but farmers started to hunt them because they thought the eagles were killing their farm animals. Then, later, people started to cut down the trees in which the eagles built their nests to make way for roads, houses, and shopping malls. With fewer places for them to make their homes, eagles found it harder and harder to survive, and they started to die out. Soon, there weren't very many bald eagles left in the whole United States. People started to notice that there were fewer and fewer bald eagles, and they decided to find out why. Scientists began to study the eagles, and they discovered 2 things. The first was that a lot of eagles didn't have enough room to build their nests. Eagles do not like to live in the same area as other eagles, so they build their nests far away from each other. They like places that are very peaceful, and they need huge, strong trees that can hold nests big enough for the adults and their babies to live. The scientists discovered that the eagles didn't have enough room in the areas which they had been living because people were chopping down trees in order to build more roads and buildings. People were destroying the bald eagle's habitat.
The other thing that scientists found out was that something bad was getting into the bald eagle's food supply. Farmers sometimes use chemicals to keep bugs from eating their crops. One chemical, though, made the eggs that the eagles laid much thinner and easier to break. Because of this, many bald eagle eggs were breaking before they could hatch. No one knew before then that the chemical was hurting the eagle, but it was.
Luckily, the scientists found out which chemical was harming the eagle's eggs. Using the scientists' information, the United States government made laws to protect the bald eagle and its habitat so that the eagle's food no longer contained the harmful chemical. Thanks to these laws, more eggs were born and the number of eagles started to rise again. Now, bald eagles have made an amazing comeback, but people must always be careful to protect their habitat. So when human beings notice that an animal is endangered, that if we need to try to figure out what we can do to help so that the animal doesn't become extinct.
This bald eagle has returned to its nest up in that tree. Maybe it has some chicks up there that it needs to feed, or maybe it's just trying to keep warm. It is pretty chilly. And speaking of returning to the nest, I'm afraid it's time for me to go home now. I've really enjoyed our trip around the world's habitats, and I hope you have too. Mrs. Rattenborough and my kids miss me. And to tell the truth, it's been a dangerous expedition for me. I'll be glad to get out of danger and into the safety of my lovely home under the steps. Home, sweet home, or maybe I should say habitat, sweet habitat. Aw, well, we're gonna miss you, Rattenborough.
Hope he has a safe trip home.
I hope he does, back to his home underneath the steps.
Okay, so now we're going to go on. What do you remember from our lesson? So now we're going to start asking questions. So, Mrs. Kunder, the first question is for you. What is an endangered species?
That's a good question, Mr. Stefano. An endangered species is a species that could die out because there are so few still living. You know, Mr. Stefano, what is extinction?
Extinction is when an animal or a plant dies out completely. That means there's none of them left on the earth anymore. It's like dinosaurs. Dinosaurs were animals that lived on the earth long ago and they are extinct. There's none alive on the earth today.
Nope, you can't go, go to a habitat and see a dinosaur.
Mrs. Kondo, why do changes in an animal's habitat make it hard for it to survive?
Well, that's a good question. You see, animals are already so well adapted to the habitat that they live in, they can adapt or make changes to the new conditions of their habitat. Mr. Stefano, what can cause a habitat to change?
Well, a habitat can change if there's changes in temperature or weather, and sometimes people do things to change the habitat, like if they come in and chop down the habitat to build homes or build shopping malls or factories, then the habitat will change.
So we really have to be mindful of, the animals when we, make changes to the environment.
Okay, Mrs. Kanda, how do people affect habitats?
Well, they can hurt them by building cities and roads, cutting down trees. They can protect them by making careful laws about where to build and by avoiding chemicals that can harm animals like the bald eagle. All right, our last question of the day, Mr. Stefano. The author of the Read Aloud said that bald eagles were becoming an endangered species. What reasons did the author give for the statement that the eagles were becoming endangered?
Well, the author said that the eagles didn't have enough space to build their nests. And the author also talked about a chemical in the food supply was making their eggs very breakable, so a lot of new eagles weren't hatching.
Wow, that was a brain stretch question too. Great. That was a very nice answer, Mr. Stefano.
Thanks,
Uh,
Mrs. Scott.
all right, first grade. So we are going to end with our journal response for the day. And like I said, we cannot wait to hear from you. We want to know, in 4 different sentences, can you explain to us what you learned about bald eagles? We gave you a lot of information about bald eagles and about a situation that happened to them. We would love to hear what you remember. And you can send us your responses through Dojo Messenger as a picture. You can type it out in the comments, whether it's the comments on YouTube or it's the comments on Dojo. Either way, we just want to hear from you. We miss you so much, first grade. And that's all the time we have. Thank you so much. Bye, first grade.
Bye, first grade. We miss you. Thanks for listening today.